Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 45. I'm Igneous, and today we're on our way back to Akua in our not at all complete capital vessel. The reason we're taking this guy instead of our other capital vessel or any of our other ships is because this one's actually better prepared for the journey so far. We've got the other capital vessel, but everything has been taken out of it, so we decided to take this one. It's very, very heavy on the fuel consumption, this ship, and I'm not surprised because of the amount of extra large thrusters that we have on there. But this gives us an opportunity, once we get our course set, is we can kind of pan around the ship and see how it's coming together in terms of the appearance of it. It's a very large ship, and it's not going to be getting smaller as time goes on. It's just going to keep getting bigger. We've got the sun providing almost too much light, so that we can get an idea of the profile, how everything's coming together. I'm happy with it so far. The biggest thing now, once again, is structural blocks. We need the hardened steel blocks and then the hardened steel plates to upgrade those hardened steel blocks to combat steel blocks to finish the structure of this ship, and then we can worry about detailing, texturing, painting, putting the guns on, doing all those things. So there's still quite a bit left to do. We still have to do the upper pod that's going to have the farming area so that we can make sure we've got plenty of food no matter where we go. Again, the biggest thing, iron, is the material that we're running out of on a pretty much constant basis because it's used in so many different things that are attached to this process. But this is our original base we're coming up to now, our original base on Akua. And it's very interesting as time goes on. When you're away from where you started and you've built new things since then, to get an idea of how the sense of scale has evolved and how we used to feel like we had a really big garden that we had growing here, and we used to think that we had this great big platform where we were building our first capital vessel, and now we get back to the planet and we've got a bigger garden in our last capital vessel than we do on all of our rooftop stuff in Akua put together. The platform that we built to make our first capital vessel is barely large enough to hold one of the hangar pods for our new capital vessel. And the interior of the base and its machines is just, it's not even a comparison to the base that we've got on Omicron. There's such a vast difference. Now, we did leave a couple of ships behind, this being one of them. This is a hover vessel. And it's good because I was going to bring our small vessel from Omicron and I forgot to load it up in the hangar before we left. Everything that we left behind, except for some of the weapons, the accumulated weapons that we had, is basically going to be coming with us. Look at all these durians and tomatoes that we left behind. I was glad that we were able to get these before the base ran out of power. I don't know when it would, but the last thing you want to do is come and open a fridge like that and find it's full of spoiled food, because it's just kind of that feeling in the back of your throat, like, I didn't want to see that. That's going to take a long time to gather that stuff again. So we're able to grab it, transfer it to the fridges on the new capital vessel, and then it'll be there and we'll take it back to Omicron and we'll figure out exactly what to do with it. But for now, it was just nice to recover this stuff before it was gone forever. So we get to this point where we've got everything out of the base, and now it's time to go head out and gathering from the various different deposits that we left behind. At this point, what you're seeing now, I'd already gathered from one iron deposit, cleared it out, got a reasonable amount of iron, not a ton. And now this is Promethium deposit. I mostly just wanted to kind of show you, if I haven't shown you in the past, first of all, why I don't do one block wide entrances and exits anymore, but also gathering from new Promethium deposits at night it's got like this marker on the surface, just that little blob sticking up that marks the top of the deposit. It's just so easy to see because there's so much contrast between that sky blue color and everything around it. You can usually find exposed little nubs of whatever you happen to be gathering from for a resource, but they're easier to hide in the terrain, so I tend to not look for them. I just kind of go with the name tag that's showing up in the HUD and start digging there. In this case, it's kind of mined by colors, I guess, not mined by numbers. There's not much to be said about the joys of gathering Promethium, except, top down, making sure not to make a mess, and then everything works out the way that it's supposed to. You get your promethium, and then you head off towards the next iron deposit, and this happens. And it's such a blast from the past. How could we have missed this? All that time that we've been on Omicron with the adder and not had this happen once. I kind of thought maybe it was a change that was made to the game that was a global thing that prevented this from happening for hover vessels at all. Apparently not. And I'm basically chalking it up to one primary thing right now, and that's how many obstacles there are on the ground on Akua as opposed to a place like Omicron, which is a little bit more desert-like in appearance all over the place. We've got giant forests, we've got all kinds of plant life and things like that. And here we are, we're in a pit. We were happily digging through this iron deposit and realized, much to our chagrin, that we hadn't brought anywhere near enough mining packs to recharge our drill, which means not only can we not continue to mine the iron, but we can't adjust the terrain to give ourselves a ramp out. And I don't carry a fill and flatten tool with me because it's 2 inventory spaces, one for the tool and one for its power packs. And a person might say, well, if you'd carried it, this would have been a great example where it would be useful, and I would agree wholeheartedly it would be useful in this situation, but not the other 99% of the time that we spend running around doing the various things that we do. So it's kind of one of those things where I got caught flat-footed. I'd made up a bunch of packs from the promethium deposit we just gathered. There's a little constructor on our hover vessel. I started processing the promethium and then turning it into packs for both our multi-tool and the drill. I just didn't bring enough with me, which is a little bit embarrassing. So the only option that I had was to suicide and hope that when I said respawn near where we died, that it would be a useful near and not somewhere else in the hole. That's the only thing that could have happened that was worse than what actually did happen. And in this case, it's a pretty straightforward matter of jumping back into the ship, grabbing the things that we need to continue the process of clearing out this iron deposit, and then we're basically back to Omicron. Once we get all this stuff gathered up, we've got all the stuff from our base already loaded onto the capital vessel. We'll get all the materials loaded onto the capital vessel, and then we'll be back to Omicron, where we can continue with the construction of the hull with all of the things that it needs, including the hardened steel plates to convert everything to combat steel. At least we hope. It's going to take a long time to process all of these materials, but this will give you an opportunity to kind of take a look at what we ended up with after we got back and had a little bit of a chance to process things and break them down into something useful. And just like that, we're back on Omicron. Oh, so familiar. Look up the valley as the sun's coming up. Just making sure that we have enough light to do the partial reveal. Partial because it's not complete yet. You can see we've got the hangar pods closed in. Except for the detailing and the texturing and the painting, they're done, which is a very nice spot to be in. And then the same goes for that hangar pod over there, exactly the same thing. It's all closed in. And then we've got this underway here, and this is going to be the upper pod where we have the farm segment. We'll have all of our growing plots in there, growing stuff. We'll have the lights, and it'll be closed in with combat steel so nobody could ruin our farm in the process of trying to shoot through to the core, which is sort of in there. And then lastly, we're going to go take a look over here carefully if we can. We have to get kind of over here and then down. There we go. That'll work. They changed the behavior of the drone, spawning the drone now so that you can't spawn it in the block behind you and have it go to the other side. And sometimes it doesn't quite work when you try and summon it now. So this is the back of the hangar pod, obviously. We've got the big hangar doors. And then one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that we had enough ramps so that we could get our hover vessels loaded up in here. So we've got 3 of the kinds of ramps that we were using previously. so that we can deploy them, and with any luck, depending on how well we landed the ship, this should come right down to the ground, and then it would be an easy job to get the hover vessel up and in. If it's not quite touching the ground, it shouldn't be too difficult to use the boost to jump in. We just have to be a little bit cautious about how things are going. And I'm looking at this now, this back section, and I'm thinking that I want to smooth that off a little bit. And the easiest way to do that might be to just do that. I think that's a little bit better. It's a little bit too pointy sticking off the back the way that it is. Sort of, you can see it again here. It's just got that little bit sticking off the back. And did we hit anything back here? No, good. And then we'll end up doing the same thing over here. Can we reach it? I don't think we can. We can reach one side, but we won't reach the other. So obviously it's going to take a while to go over and do the basic texture on these guys and then paint it, and then go over it again and do all of the detailing where we add little things to it just for the sake of making it look a little bit more interesting. And then lastly going around and doing all of the texturing to make it even more interesting if we can. And then of course we've got to get all of the guns in place. But one thing that we won't have a difficult time with is finding spaces to put guns, because it is large enough that we should have a pretty easy time. The guns that we have access to are actually pretty limited on planets. We basically can only use the minigun turrets, which is fine because those are really effective at handling drones and bad guys on the ground if we really needed them to. But for space is where the options kind of open up, and I didn't realize, but there's actually an artillery cannon for capital vessels that you can use in space, and I've made one of those. It's one of those things, the ammunition is so expensive you don't want it shooting off on its own at whatever targets it decides to shoot at, because you can waste a lot of ammunition that way. But for some of the bases, some of the star bases that I've seen, a little extra punch might be warranted. So that's what we're going to work towards. We're going to get this guy done up as soon as we can. We're going to get the farm planted, everything ready to go. We're going to finish detailing everything, getting it looking the way that we want it to, and then we're going to focus our attention on some of the star bases. There was one just off Akua that we encountered previously and we decided not to stick around for, and then there's another one that I found when I was mining Sathium here in the asteroid belt around Omicron that was especially nasty looking, that we'll take a look at. And with any luck, we'll have a run at that one too, and see not only how well our ship holds up against it, but what kind of loot we get for dealing with that kind of madness. Quite frankly, I'm not expecting a whole lot. I'm kind of expecting that we're gonna get the same loot that we would get from a drone base, something, maybe one, maybe two purple barrels, and the rest is just stuff. There's only so much that we can get. There's only so much that we can use out of purple barrels. An epic shotgun would be nice, and then after that, we've got most things covered. So we've been busy. We've definitely been busy. We've been making progress, slowly but steadily. The next episode should probably be the one where you see it really come together into the finished product before we head on off and put it through its paces with a little bit of shakedown activity involving star bases with more turrets than you can imagine. And we'll see how everything holds up. So if you want to be notified when I add the new episodes, with all that crazy stuff going on, you can always subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.